A World Cup winner entered the MLS stage this weekend. Which American docuseries should we check out? And is it too hot to play soccer? That and more on Monday's Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kick Around, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's favorite country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. Thank you for joining us here. How you doing, Mr. Davis?
I'm good, ready to go. That was a wild weekend in American soccer. Some good, some bad, some way too damn hot. So we're going to have some fun today, I think, and maybe dive into some significant questions. Good stuff coming, I think, on today's show, Rob.
Yes, I'm excited. My feet are sizzling just thinking about our topics this morning. But before we get into our long balls, our big questions, and our hot topics today, if you're watching this now and if you haven't hit subscribe, do so now. Morning Kick Around. Just hit the subscribe button. You will join the ever-growing group of subscribers. If you'd like to support the show just a little bit more, become an MK Ultra, a channel member for $3.99 a month. You can become an MK Ultra, get priority commenting on the screen during these live shows. This is a interactive program, so get your comments in during this live show. You can also get priority comments on the show, early access to videos, bonus content, and access to the Morning Kick Around Discord server. Lots of great threads and conversations on the Discord server. They're great to check in every now and again on there, see what's going on with the MK Ultras. And if you'd like to reach out to the show, morningkickaround@gmail.com is a great way to do it. We had some great notes along the way and love to read feedback from the viewers. And if you'd like to follow on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. One more final way to support the show, coffee.com/morningkickaround, a place where you can donate to some specific fundraising goals here for the show. Thank you to everyone who's donated there and thinking about it in the future. And if nothing else, thank you for tuning in to the program. You ready to start off with some long balls, Mr. Davis?
Yeah, let's go. That's enough hot footing. Let's go.
Let's do it. Morning Kick Rounds. Long balls. Here we go. Monday morning. Long balls here on Morning Kicker. I'm getting us started here on Monday morning. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis, leading the line here this morning. Thomas Mueller, the World Cup winner from Germany, spent a quarter century for Bayern Munich. And he entered the 60th minute up in Vancouver, and he had an instant impact, even though his goal contribution was pulled off the board. It provided for a pretty great moment.
Yeah, I mean, after the game, he was saying, like, it was such an incredible atmosphere there, or the crowd was going crazy. I mean, remember, this man has never scored a professional goal for any club except Bayern Munich. Wouldn't that have been a moment if he had done it for the Vancouver Whitecaps in his first ever performance for them? And again, coming off the bench. Now, being on the East Coast, it was a tough one to stay up for me, but, I did catch up on what went down there in Vancouver. Ends up 1-1. You did have Artur scoring an equalizer for Houston, which, took some of the bloom off the rose for Vancouver, who I think would have wanted to have a winning debut, regardless of whether or not he scored. If you check out Matt Doyle's Blue Sky, and I'm sure he put it on X as well. In fact, I think he put it in his column today, because Matt Doyle at MLSsoccer.com writes that recap column every Monday. He has some moments that are not, they don't end up with goals. They don't even end up with chances necessarily, but you can see what Thomas Mueller does. Obviously, if you watched Bayern Munich over the years, you watched Germany over the years, you would have seen him do this. But his ability to exploit space to the benefit of his teammates is remarkable, Rob. I mean, that is what makes him special. It's not that he scores a ton of goals or that he's got the best skill. It's that he reads the game so well. And that thing, bringing that to Vancouver could be very, very interesting. And of course, it means Jesper Sorensen has to figure out how to make all these pieces work, because it's not obvious based on how they've always played in a 4-3-3 where Thomas Mueller is going to pop up. Is he a second forward? Well, now you're playing with two-man front line? Are you playing him where Sebastian Berhalter usually does? Well, his role is more defensive, even though he can get forward. So Kubas obviously is one of those defensive keys as well. How do you balance these things out? I don't know. It's an interesting conundrum, but I think a fascinating one to watch unfold in Vancouver.
I got a feel for Javin Badwal. He was the player coming out for Thomas Mueller. How does that feel for the player pulled out, where everyone, it was just, cheering and on their feet for the player replacing you? That's got to be a little bit of a dent to the ego. Obviously, it's a little bit understandable because one of the legends of the game is coming in. That's got to be a little bit of a dent to the ego. Will I ever get to be on the field before this man again? Has to be running through his mind. But it's great to see Vancouver, getting up to the occasion. And, it seems like they've been laying out the red carpet for him there.
Yeah, I mean, the red carpet. That's what I was going to say. I mean, I'm looking at a picture that the Caps put up on their Instagram or whatever account this was. I guess maybe this was X, and it's a picture. They put up a sign that says Thomas Mueller Way, right outside the stadium BC Place there in British Columbia. This is a massive thing, right? This is a really big deal for a club that's never had a player of this caliber, this profile. So let's be excited, I guess, for Vancouver. And again, the on the field stuff is where this ultimately is going to be judged. But it certainly did seem to be an event in Vancouver, and if they can keep that momentum, good for them. And let's not forget that this was a club that was put up for sale. Now, I've read subsequently that they're actually kind of more like, hey, we'll take some investment. We don't have to sell the club, but we do need some people to step up to help fund us going forward, buy into this club. And Don Garber at the All-Star game in Austin last month said, we need them to build a soccer stadium in Vancouver. They cannot play in BC Place. And, it was kind of striking to see Thomas Mueller, who says he doesn't have a problem with it, step out onto that weird artificial surface they have in British Columbia, in Vancouver. It doesn't look natural. It looks fake in a really, really stark way. And it was so odd to see him there. But again, if he says he's okay with it and they can use this to move forward, good for them.
It's a wild turnaround for Vancouver, because I think one of the very first segments that we did on Morning Kickaround, when the show was just a little hatchling, was what's the future of Vancouver Whitecaps, potential sale, not great performance on the field. But I was trying to think of just the signing in general of Thomas Mueller going to Vancouver. When these big names come over, you think about the New Yorks, the LAs, the Miamis. Is Mueller's signing the biggest foreign signing for a non-coastal elite team? Is there a bigger name? Obviously Beckham went to the Galaxy, and then the Messis and friends in Miami, and a lot of
you had Bastian Schweinsteiger. If you're counting Chicago as a, that's a massive market. They've underperformed relative to the size of that market for years and years and years. But of course, Bastian Schweinsteiger played in Chicago. That's not a coastal city. Now, if you're thinking beyond, maybe a little bit lower down the population and sort of prestige pecking order, yeah, this I would have to think about it. I'd have to think about whether or not anybody has signed for one of those teams in the middle of the country, or Kaká played in Orlando. Orlando's not thought of as one of those top cities in America in terms of the attractiveness to a foreign player. There's a couple of other examples, but it's in that category, right? It's in that category of one of the biggest names ever to play in a team that wasn't based in LA, in New York, or in Miami. I guess now Miami has emerged as that most attractive of MLS cities.
I guess maybe he's just got a different perspective of thinking. Maybe he's considering Vancouver the Los Angeles of Canada, and it's just the West Coast, and he maybe just got his geography a little.
I wonder. No, I'm sure he was very much excited to play in Vancouver. Vancouver's amazing from what I've heard. I
was just there a couple weeks ago for about 16 hours before getting on the cruise, and it was pretty amazing and pretty impressive. And I was there within 24 hours of this signing, so it was quite an interesting time to be out there. But yeah, I've heard some conflicting reports on the playing surface there. Some say it's great, some people say it's the worst they've seen. So
I think it's probably terrible for them. Compared to grass, it's probably terrible. But is it so bad that you can't play on it? No, I don't know. And again, I think it occurred to me last night as I'm waiting for Mueller to come on for Vancouver. I'm thinking, this signing at this moment is very interesting because of the team being, again, up for sale, at least the way that that's the way it was framed initially, and the stadium issue that Garber specifically pointed out. Now, when the commissioner of the league is publicly stating that the team needs a stadium, that's a warning sign. Alarm bells should be going off in Vancouver. I think they are with the ownership group. And this is why people have been like, oh my God, they're going to sell the team and they're going to move it. They're going to move Vancouver to some other city. There's going to be a grisly situation all over again for us. And you don't want that, right? Nobody wants that. Is there something to this signing that is about that more than it is about winning soccer games? Like if Thomas Mueller says he wants to play in Vancouver, you sign him if you can afford it. But this also could be, hey, this is going to help make the team more attractive to do investment. Maybe this is even a line towards Thomas Mueller. Not that he's got money to make a difference, but maybe Thomas Mueller becomes part of the ownership group. It was not announced that way when he was signed, Rob. It wasn't like Thomas Mueller signs with the Whitecaps and he has an option to buy a portion of the ownership group when he retires. But I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens if he enjoys his time and there's a chance to be a part of a builder of an MLS team in Canada.
Well, he definitely seems like the person that doesn't commit lightly. I mean, if you gauge his previous steps, I mean, he didn't just hop around. And so if he's going to choose Vancouver, you'd think there was a reason to kind of plant his flag and maybe lay down some roots there. But we shall see. An interesting debut. Thomas Mueller, World Cup winner, started or off the bench for Vancouver, came in, hit the back of the net, but it was ruled off. So we shall see how Thomas Mueller, impact Vancouver, who are looking to keep pace in the very competitive MLS Western Conference. Moving on to long ball number 2 here on Monday morning. Lots of European action to kind of look at. The Premier League got underway, as did many of the major European leagues, and some Italian Cup action, as we are all too aware of. There are plenty of Americans plying their trade overseas. So what kind of came across your timeline? What American performances kind of were notable in your mind there, Jason?
Well, okay. Considering the drama, considering everything we've recently talked about with Christian Pulisic and the renewed back and forth with the previous generation, thanks to the Pulisic documentary, great to have him score a goal. It's a Coppa Italia match. It's not a league match. The league doesn't start until this coming weekend, but it still is a good thing. I think there's lots of questions about where Milan is and whether or not they're going to be able to really compete in Serie A this season. But from a selfish American perspective, you definitely want Christian Pulisic to be good, to be scoring goals and feeling confident, regardless of what happens for his club, because we've got that thing called the World Cup coming up next year in the United States of America. And look, I've heard some very dicey rumors that Pochettino is really not thrilled with this whole Pulisic thing, and that there could even be, I'm not reporting this as true. I'm simply telling you that I've heard a rumor that he might leave Pulisic off his team until something changes with the way this is going. Now, again, that would be dramatic. That would be, even if it's only a friendly window coming up in September. And we do have games coming up very soon. If Pochettino was to leave Pulisic off, if he called everybody else up who would be counted as an A team, and he leaves Christian Pulisic off, that is a massive, massive thing. It would become the biggest story in American soccer, probably since Landon Donovan was left off the 2014 World Cup team. And I don't think Pochettino's that stupid. Like, I think he's going to try to work this out. But with that being said, really good to have Pulisic on the score sheet and doing things that we know he can do. Otherwise, though, Rob, the thing that stands out for me is that Crystal Palace started out their season with a point away to Chelsea, when people were thinking, people are kind of hyping up Chelsea a little bit. Now, I have them 4th in my predicted standings. I think a lot of people do, but they're supposed to be better than Crystal Palace, and Palace able to hold on defensively and really actually take it to Chelsea at times was very positive. And Chris Richards was part of that, right? He wasn't perfect. He had a couple moments, but I think particularly towards the end of that game, as Palace was trying to close it out and get that point at Stamford Bridge, I think he played pretty well, and I'm encouraged by his growth.
Yeah, we shall see how that goes. But Crystal Palace, if they are able to keep that squad together as it is in these first couple of weeks, they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. Obviously, won the FA Cup, won the Community Shield last week over Liverpool in penalties, and then held the surging Chelsea to a scoreless draw and kind of got ripped off. I mean, they had a goal taken away, dubiously, shall we say, for a player being near the Chelsea wall, which seems to be a rule that they sometimes in 4, sometimes not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so they could have actually snatched the 3 points, but
That's true.
hopefully
Yeah.
hopefully Chris Richards and Palace continue their positive results. But on kind of like as we go from the up positive of Pulisic maybe to the medium of Richards and Palace, we probably go to the lower end of the form teeter-totter on opening weekend. Johnny Cardoso, he had a big move this offseason, and his debut probably didn't go as he would have wished.
Yeah, I mean, it was a loss for Atletico Madrid away to Espanyol. I watched that game. I adopted Atleti on my trip to Spain last year, and I was kind of, I was emotionally involved as a fan, or becoming a fan of Atleti as much as I was emotionally involved because of Johnny Cardoso making his debut for Atleti. Atletico Madrid got an incredible free kick goal from Julian Alvarez to take a lead in the first half. Incredible. About as good as you can hit a free kick. Julian Alvarez in the 37th minute. Go watch it. It's worth the time. But then at halftime, and Johnny did pick up a yellow card. Right. Okay. So Johnny Cardoso picks up a yellow card in the first half, and Diego Simeone decides to take off both Cardoso and Conor Gallagher at halftime. Both of his holding midfielders, he takes them off. He brings on Koke, obviously longtime servant of the club, incredible legend, not trying to talk ill of Koke, and Pablo Berrios. And they subsequently lose control of the game. They lose control of the midfield. They lose control of the game. Espanyol starts peppering them with chances, and eventually they get 2 goals, and Espanyol wins the game. And I look, obviously, again, I'm biased. Not only am I upset that Atleti lost the game, and it's a blow to their chances to maybe win the title this year. I know it's away to Espanyol, but you've got to get away points in this league if you're going to keep up with Real Madrid and Barcelona. I really didn't like the way that Diego Simeone the way that Diego Simeone handled his substitutes. I'm all flustered because of this. I thought it did Johnny dirty. Again, if you don't trust him to maybe stay disciplined and not pick up a second yellow, I guess that's an argument for taking him off. He got it just before halftime, that yellow card. But man, it's really damning. Without diving, without falling into the trap of results-based analysis, Rob, it's really damning the way that game played out in the second half with how much control of the match and opportunity that Espanyol had.
Yeah. Coming back to the shores of England, it's been pointed out in the chat, and I can't really ignore the efforts of one Joshua Sargent. He's got 3 goals in 3 games for Norwich. He's been rumored with a move away from Norwich, but doesn't necessarily. Have you heard anything about that? Is there anything to him moving away, or is he
after the Wolfsburg deal? I believe it was the Wolfsburg deal fell through. It doesn't seem like anything's happening with Josh Sargent. I think he wants to stay there. He's got his family very settled in Norwich. I think he's comfortable, and he wants to try to help the Canaries get back up to the top division. So if you're going to have him, better to have him scoring goals. And we know he can do it at this level. We know he can do it in this division. Now, I think it would be easy for people to say, well, Josh Sargent should be challenging himself and maybe going to the Bundesliga if he wants to be a key factor in the World Cup next year for the United States, because he's been on the outs, right? He hasn't really gotten a chance significantly. He hasn't scored a goal famously for the U.S. in, I think it's 6 years at this point.
Pre-COVID, I know that.
Yeah, so, people are down on him as a national teamer. And if he's going to convince Pochettino, or if he's going to get a shot, maybe he does need a move to a higher level. But man, this is also a guy that is allowed to make choices based on his own personal happiness. And I think that's tough because, maybe for him, it's not all about the World Cup. Maybe for him, it's not all about being an international or a World Cup player. It's about a lot of things that go beyond that. And if we're like, oh, if it was me, I would definitely go to the Bundesliga. Or I definitely. Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy for Josh Sargent, and I do think it makes it tough for us to kind of want to talk about him on a regular basis if he's scoring goals in the championship, Rob, because it's like, well, yeah, but does that translate? Who cares? He doesn't play for the U.S. men's national team anymore. At least he's not getting an opportunity, or when he does, he doesn't score. Maybe we should be focused on other people.
Yeah, it's hard to lean on Josh Sargent too much to leave, because he has earlier in his career pre-Norwich, he bounced around a little bit, sometimes successfully, and sometimes it's gone really bad for him. So he's in a place where he's regularly scoring goals. Maybe, don't mess up a thing that's working right. Don't spoil what's going right in the right direction. And, he's scoring goals. Norwich they're probably like the 21st best team in England, honestly. Like,
Sure.
They just go up and down. They just go up and down. They're like one of the best normal
That might,
teams that's not owned by like an
yeah,
oligarch
that, that
of
might be
some
that
sort.
might be a little high at this point in time, but you're right. Like that, they are in that yo-yo bucket of clubs, right? They're a Burnley. There's a couple other teams that are
They're
kind
more
of in
fun than
that.
Burnley. They've had some very exciting seasons. But my point is, if he's got a settled family and his game is going well, and he can, he's doing well where he's at. So continue doing that, and just if you just keep on racking up the goals, he's on a
Look,
3-3 situation. That Pochettino can't ignore that for too much
I,
longer.
I'm
You
not
can't
I'm not
imagine.
I'm not going to compare them exactly because I don't think this is Josh Sargent saying no, I don't want to play for the national team. That's not. I don't think that's the case. I think he would love to get a call up and he'd love to play. But think about and I was reading something about some game the other day, and I don't even remember. And it was talking about how you really need to have a press resistant midfielder to make a certain system work, right? Like those guys, those press resistant midfielders are so few and far between that they're like, they're the gold standard, they're platinum, they're worth every single. And I'm thinking, man, Darlington Nagbe could have been that guy. He could have gone to Europe. He could have been a star player. I mean, he could have played at a very high level. I'm not saying he would have been a Premier League superstar or a Bundesliga superstar, but Darlington Nagbe, if he had chosen that path, could have been a very good player in Europe for a number of years. And maybe that would have been, and if he had decided he wanted to play for the U.S. men's national team, he could have been the key guy. He would have been holding down a position in that midfield for the U.S. men for a decade because that's how good he was and maybe how good he still is. And yet he chose a different path. That wasn't the path for Darlington Nagbe. He wanted to stay home. He wanted to take care of his kids. He wanted to be comfortable. And who are we to judge that? We can say it's hard to put Darlington Nagbe up against players who played in Europe or up against players who were playing at a higher level. But in terms of who he's been, and he's been excellent what he's done for a decade, and he's happy. Maybe that's Josh Sargent. Doesn't want to push himself right now, especially. It was Josh Sargent, 25?
Something
25,
like that.
26?
He went to Europe quite a while ago when he was right at the age of 18. So yeah, makes sense. He's in that age range. And Norwich City, very much like the Midwest of England too. So he's a what, like St. Louis kind of
He's
guy.
a St. Louis kid, yeah. I think Norwich is pretty pastoral, right? It's not the big city. It's not bustling London or anything like that. I mean, he played in Germany. Remember, if he passed on this move to Germany, he played in Germany and maybe just doesn't want to go back.
Indeed. We'll see. And in the last second, shout out Jetman 022. Shout out to Lyndon Gooch, a name I haven't thought about in a very long time, getting a goal for Huddersfield. So
Lyndon
Americans
Gooch,
all over the place.
not obviously involved in the moment, but a long time player for Sunderland. Went up and down a couple times between lower divisions with Sunderland, Lyndon Gooch. So shout out to him.
Moving on to long ball number 3 here on Monday morning. Kind of like throw back to Friday's segment on Friday mornings. We want to pick the Fab Four of games to look out for over the weekend. And just with the very busy and congested calendar, both domestically and abroad, we'll see how those games did compare and did they deliver on their fabulous four moniker. Jason, you kicked us off on Friday, told us to look out for Chicago versus St. Louis, and that looked like it was a pretty good game.
Yeah, delivered a little bit, right? 5 goals between those two teams, and one of those moments for Chicago, right? Chicago under Greg Berhalter, a totally new look team, and they all this stuff is happening, and they're trying to get better, and they're trying to grow, and it's like, okay, well, have they taken a step forward? Remember, they just got to make the playoffs. That's step one, Rob. They got to make the playoffs, be a little bit more relevant in Chicago. They get a goal from Hugo Kuipers. They get a goal, or they give up a goal to Ostrak. It's 1-1. They give up a second to Hartl for St. Louis, and now they're down 2-1. And again, you're like, uh-oh. This St. Louis is not good this year. They've already fired their coach in 2025. You're going to drop points at home. I know it's SeatGeek Stadium and not Soldier Field, and what is even Chicago Fire's home stadium at this point. But still, you can't be dropping points like this against a poor St. Louis team if you want to make the playoffs. And they get a goal from Zinkernagel, who's been excellent this season, and they get a goal from Brian Gutierrez, who I like a lot, in the 88th minute, and they win the game. So I'm feeling good about my pick. Yeah, was the rivalry heat there, the Midwest Chicago St. Louis thing there? Maybe it's growing. Maybe, I don't know, but this game delivered in terms of entertainment value.
Zinkernagel reminding us that we need to do an MLS All 11 Names team, perhaps in our future. Zinkernagel might make that list. I picked on Friday. I wanted to look out for Toronto versus Columbus. Maybe not quite as exciting as the one you picked. Rossi opened the scoring for Columbus in the first half, but Toronto equalized in the 77th minute. It was another case of Columbus kind of having the upper hand most of the game and not getting that second goal, and then paying the price at the end of it. Not sure if Jordy Mihailovic, yes, he did in fact get the start, and he got the assist on that. So Toronto's new signing having an instant impact, but just a 1-1 result there. And then we're going to talk about the Jenny's pick to a greater extent later on, but the third pick of the Fab Four, Kansas City Current versus Orlando Pride in the NWSL.
Yeah, that one delayed 3.5 hours because of heat. And then, of course, we were going to get a goalless game. And again, we'll dive into the particulars of that moment, that scheduling, and what happened in in Kansas City, and what it might indicate about the priorities of the NWSL and their broadcast partners, and whether there are other problems, and sort of a general problem with heat, I think is going to be it. But yeah, man, I really wish two best teams in NWSL, really wish that had delivered more fireworks and things like, oh, maybe fireworks would have started a fire. I don't know how that works. But yeah, we didn't get what we wanted out of that. I don't blame Jenny for picking it, but we didn't get what we wanted out of that game.
No, we can see why she picked it, but yeah, not so good. We didn't see Chewinga and Banda, two of the most exciting players in women's world football, not put at the pinnacle due to scheduling. And then the fourth pick of the Fab Four on Friday, returning to that chat pick, of course, interactive show and definitely an interactive segment, the Fab Four. And the chat picked Pittsburgh versus Charleston in the USL, and it saw Charleston on the road get a 2-1 win, which moved them up to second place in the Eastern Conference there.
Yeah, I mean, they were in second place coming into the day, so just a matter of keeping pace with Louisville City, who beat Miami down in Miami, in order for them to maybe have a shot at the points title in the USL Championship. As we talked about that game a little bit, if I remember on Friday, part of the dynamic was you had the old guard coach and Bob Lilly on the Pittsburgh side, who's been there for what? It's a decade now. He won a championship in Rochester, bounced over to Pittsburgh, hasn't won a championship in Pittsburgh yet. The playoffs have always been real tough for the Riverhounds with Bob Lilly at the helm. But Charleston with the victory. Rubio Rubin. How about that for a name from the past?
Rubio
Rubin. I mean, for American soccer fans, Rubio Rubin has been around in the USL Championship. I'm not saying that this is new, but he did join the battery just this year. He had been in.
He's a journeyman. He's a journeyman.
I'm going to give you his recent resume. So Charleston this year, Querétaro, for it looks like he spent about a year there, so maybe 2 tournaments. Real Salt Lake, 93 games he played for Real Salt Lake, scored 12 goals. San Diego Loyal, he was there for a brief stint right after the COVID era. He obviously played in Mexico for a couple of other clubs. Anyway, Rubio Rubin, pride of Portland, Oregon, scoring for Charleston in that game. They got a second goal in the 55th minute from Arturo Rodriguez, a Mexican international, to win that match. And as you said, to keep pace in the Eastern Conference.
So the Fab Four, we pick them on Friday, a little bit of a predictive sort of segment, trying to forecast what games are going to be the best. But what was actually the most enjoyable game? Which game did deliver? And in retrospect, kind of reviewing the weekend that was, Inter Miami versus LA Galaxy might have been the game that we were maybe should have highlighted. I know there is some Miami exhaustion out there. There's some Miami exhaustion out there.
Is it yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe our instinct is like, we can't possibly talk about Miami and Messi again. And look, I don't know what we do. We must have had word on Friday. In fact, I probably mentioned it, that Marciano said that Messi would be available, but we didn't know what his role was going to be. We didn't know how much he would play. I was kind of thinking, okay, it's a muscle injury. They're going to be very careful with him. Maybe he gets a couple of minutes at the end of the match, or maybe he doesn't come off the bench at all. Maybe they just let's keep our guy on mothballs for a minute and let him recuperate. No, that's not what happens. Lionel Messi comes into the game right after halftime, and what does he do? Goal and an assist. The goal, vintage Messi, just chopping people, left-footed shot, perfectly placed. You know how he does it. Rolls it to the far post. And then the back heel flick for Luis Suarez, who finishes from a tough angle. I mean, yeah, great stuff from Lionel Messi.
those guys, really continue to produce results. I was kind of scanning through Suarez's history, and it's just still incredible. In the 15-16 season, he scored 59 goals for that Barcelona team, which is insane, but he's still doing it now. I think he's up to 25 or so this year. So the scorers in that one, it was a 3-1 result for Inter Miami. It was Alba, Messi, and Suarez. So
Yeah.
the triumvirate of attacking players for Miami continuing to get results, and I'd say their demise has been much overstated.
Well, Suarez has been streaky, right? So you said 25. I think he's got 25 goals total for Miami since he arrived. He's got 6 goals this season. So if he starts to heat up a little bit towards the end of this regular season and in the playoffs, that's when you think about Miami as a real contender. Remember, though, last year they ran into Atlanta, got knocked out in the first round, trying to avoid that. And they got Leagues Cup coming up against the Galaxy, I believe, on Wednesday.
We shall see how they progress, but that is the Fab Four. How did they deliver?
I don't know why I said that. They have Tigres in the Leagues Cup. Galaxy are also in the Leagues Cup. That's where I got confused. Inter Miami and Tigres in the Leagues Cup. LA Galaxy will play Pachuca on Wednesday. Sounders, Puebla, Toluca, and Orlando. Go ahead.
There you go. Thank you for tuning in. This is the end of Long Balls here on Morning Kick Around, our opening headlines of the day. If you're watching this now and haven't hit subscribe yet, do so now. It doesn't cost you a darn thing, and you'll join the conversation to another level. We are in the pursuit of becoming one of the town centers for the American soccer conversation. If you want to step your support up a notch, $3.99 a month to become an MK Ultra, a Morning Kick Around YouTube channel member. You get priority commenting on the screen during live shows and access to the Discord server. Love checking in on all the conversation threads going on over there, spanning from local to MLS to USL events to men's national team thread and just general conversation and member intros, which are a fun, like a soccerholic conversation and discourse, which is a great reason. And one of the benefits of becoming an MK Ultra, $3.99 a month to become a channel member. If you want to follow along on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can also write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support another way outside of the YouTube bubble, coffee.com/morningkickaround for some specific fundraising goals. We're going to move right along here with our next segment, a duly named segment, Hot Topic, coming up here on Morning Kick Around. Hot topic here on Morning Kick Around couldn't be more on the nose. Is it too hot to play? It proved to be in Kansas City, the marquee game on the NWSL schedule this weekend, delayed 3.5 hours. They put the KC Current versus Orlando in Kansas City due to be kicked off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Was that a good idea, Jason?
Seems not to have been. Seems to have been a mistake. Here's the headline from The Athletic. NWSL match finishes scoreless after 3.5 hour heat delay. Quote, it was too hot to play. And who could have known, Rob, in the middle of August in Kansas City, Missouri, that it would be too hot to play. Too hot at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Yeah, okay. So this is where the conflicting concerns for the NWSL come to a head, right? And why this is something we need to talk about. Because they wanted this game to go off at 3 p.m. because they wanted it to be on television. They wanted it to be on CBS. They wanted it to be a marquee matchup, which it was, played in the only purpose-built women's soccer stadium in the country. And that was supposed to be an advertisement for NWSL, an opportunity to get this game in front of as many eyeballs as possible and show off the best that NWSL has to offer. But man, again, who could have known that it was going to be so hot? And I don't know, Rob, what do you think? Put yourself in the shoes of the NWSL decision makers when they're looking at the schedule and they're looking at their television dates and they're looking at their CBS partnership and they're like, you know what we got to do? We got to get that Kansas City Stadium on television, and we got to do it with a couple of our biggest teams. Would you have made this same choice? I mean, forget that it was delayed. Would you have made the same choice, being able to somewhat predict that was going to be goddamn hot in Kansas City in August?
Yeah, more often than not, it would be. I mean, maybe their fingers crossed. Hopefully it's a randomly rainy game in the area of the country, but it's almost probably the beggars can't be choosers sort of a thing. Maybe it's like CBS is like, hey, we have this spot available. What game do you got? Or we want to feature two of your best teams. What's on the schedule that day? They probably didn't have a whole lot of choice in this. I can't quite see what you got on the schedule, but to answer a question from Nate on the screen, so how hot was it? So the NWSL rules state that the temperature must not exceed 92.3. In direct sunlight, they have a WGBT measure heat stress, and it accounts for factors such as temperature, humidity, wind speed, sun angle, and cloud coverage. And at kickoff, or the scheduled kickoff, the metric was close to 94 degrees, so just above that threshold. 94 degrees, that's a pretty unsafe temperature from my guesstimation. What does it say on the screen there, Mr.
So this is Daniel Sperry. He writes on Kansas City Soccer. Follow him at Daniel Sperry, kc.bsky.social. Yes, I believe we have. Statement from an NWSL spokesperson on the delays. The league aims to play matches as scheduled whenever safely possible. While forecasts guide planning, we primarily rely on real-time, on-site weather data to make informed decisions in accordance with our inclement weather policies and protocols. Based on those inputs, the league made the decision to delay today's match. And again, it feels like they shot themselves in the foot, Rob, that this was a self-inflicted situation. You had to know that there were going to be potential heat problems. And again, Riverside Grove, why couldn't it have been played at 7? Because that's not the TV window, right? That's not the TV window. Now, okay. Now, Nate's also saying 92.3, that's nothing. That's the entire summer in many parts of the country. No. Again, these are league policies. I'm imagining that some of this is negotiated with the NWSL Players Union, right? The union says we're not going to play if it's too hot. And even if you want to say, well, it's hotter other places, or maybe it's as hot in another place where they're playing a men's game or whatever, it shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be putting these players through this, right? And there's this sense that like, oh, well, we all just have to deal with this. But man, at some point we have to say, well, enough is enough. Look, I'm going to add a little bit more evidence to what's going on with the heat. And this is NWSL again, but I also think this applies to applies to MLS as we consider a calendar change. This is Laura Harvey talking about a game that the Seattle Reign played in Portland last weekend, not this past weekend, but last weekend.
Best doing health-wise, is she 100%?
Yes. She, a lot of the players on Sunday literally had burnt feet, and like the turf literally burnt them. She was one of them. So imagine what sunburn is on the bottom of your feet. That's basically what they had. So that's how hot it was in.
Hot and pretty horrific. Now, that's pretty horrific.
Portland's not even considered that hot of a city, right? Relative to a Kansas City in the summer, or a Texas in the summer, or the Deep South in the summer. That's not supposed to be that one of the hotter places. And obviously, the artificial surface in Portland is part of the problem here. That's retaining heat in a way that grass is not going to retain heat, right? So I don't want to say that applies in every case. But again, Laura Harvey is saying it was so hot, our players had burned feet. How can you possibly play decent soccer in a place where it's too hot and you burn your feet? I mean, what are we doing here? And what do we do? Acknowledging that it's not going to get cooler. It's not going to get cooler. It's only going to get hotter. And I actually think now, as we see this evidence come out, as we see what happened this weekend in Kansas City, when we consider what MLS is looking at, and Don Garver's talking about aligning windows, and how much of it is just, we can't play in the summer. It's going to be too damn hot.
Yeah, this is definitely part. I know a lot of the focus of the calendar change for MLS is focused on it's going to be too cold in the winter, but this is definitely part of the equation. Is midsummer heat is insane. And I kind of remember when I was covering the Chicago Fire, or the Chicago Red Stars, actually, and there was a game that was incredibly hot. Seemed like it was too hot for anyone to exist. They even had a safety warning for the crowd to have everyone in the stands come to the near side of the stands to fill in the shaded part. And it had a huge impact on the game because the players all drifted to the side of the field with the shadow. And almost all of the play was on one side of the field, intentionally or not, but all the players were gravitating towards the one side of the field in SeatGeek that had a little bit of a shadow. So you can't say that's the pinnacle of the competition if the people on the field need to be hiding in the shadows
Yeah,
in order to
yeah.
just get through a game. And it's insane. And then I remember also a couple of years ago at an artificial turf, my USL2 side, Oakland County FC, they had some of their the studs on the bottom of their boots melting because of the sort of situation. Those artificial turfs, a lot of them, the high school football fields are basically just carpet on top of concrete, and it's like a sizzling frying pan. And that's probably why that situation happened in Portland with the burns on the bottom of the feet, because I've felt that radiating heat is super uncomfortable, and I can't imagine what actually having it scorched through your shoes, through your socks, on your feet.
Well,
That's just terrible.
I'll tell you
that's
what.
not humane.
Okay. And I don't think the level of melanin in your skin doesn't necessarily mean that you are protected, right? People can get sunburned no matter what color your skin is. But as somebody who is fair skinned in that kind of sun and that kind of heat, I turn into like a tomato. Like it's terrible. And it doesn't really matter what I put on. Like it's just impossible. Now I'm also like, I'm like a heavy sweater as well. Like I just imagine now that's a cooling mechanism, and maybe I ultimately in the end would be okay. But like heat stroke's a real thing, and it happens all the time. In fact, one of the things about that game in Kansas City is that multiple people were taken away in ambulances because of heat stroke in the stands, and they weren't running around. Now they're not top level athletes either, but they're not running around. They're just in the building trying to watch a soccer game, and they have to go to the hospital because of heat stroke. Like we cannot do that. We cannot do that. And unfortunately, in terms of how we deal with this, right? There are much bigger issues that are not soccer specific about the way that our climate is changing, and how much of that is even controllable is a debate I don't want to get into. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't know what we can do. It seems like this is just we're down this road, and whether it was natural or man-made, we're just dealing with heat, right? Heat is a greater problem in our lives now than it's ever been before. One of the things in Europe that I've read, Rob, is all those houses, particularly in Northern Europe, were designed to hold in heat during the winter, not to cool, because in the summer it wasn't all that hot. Now it's too hot, and they don't have the airflow isn't designed for it to cool the house. It's designed to hold all that. And so when we're here in the US and we're like, oh, it's 95, that's pretty hot, but I'm inside and I've got a house with air conditioning and we're all good. In Europe, people are dying because their houses are not designed properly for that kind of heat, no matter what kind of air conditioned situation that they have. Right. So this is just, again, sort of acknowledging that we're in a moment where we're dealing with stuff we've never had to deal with before, even if we think, oh, it's always been hot. It's not been hot like this. And it's certainly not been hot like this when leagues like the NWSL are trying to grow by putting their product on television at 3:00 in the afternoon on a Kansas City weekend.
Yeah, we didn't get to see the likes of Timur Chewinga and Barbara Banda, ply their trade at the top of their game. The heat is preventative for athletes to play at the top of their abilities. And then this might come into the fact of, like, there is a debate in global women's soccer about what league is the top league. Is it the Women's Super League in UK? That's on the rise. And in the NWSL, like they're competing for those top talents. And then is the drastic heat and the extreme weather one of the cases to maybe one of the top players deciding to go to England rather than the United States and the NWSL?
I'm going to say this again, okay, because Nate is in here arguing about this temperature. Oh, it's not that hot. 92, 95, okay, 96 is not that hot. Nate, no, I don't want to pick on you here, okay? We shouldn't have to talk about that. We shouldn't have to be like, well, 92 is not that hot. It's always been 92. Players, again, just because we've always done it doesn't mean we should keep doing it. Does that make sense? Like, we get to a point where it's like, okay, look, we've always played in the summer and it's always hot and we deal with it. No, we should be looking for ways to mitigate the impact of the heat on our soccer. First of all, for the benefit of the health of the players, but second of all, for the quality of the game in this country. Right? I think, again, MLS is looking at this and going, our product is going to suffer in significant ways, because now it's not just, it's 95 degrees at 2:00 in the afternoon, don't play at 2. It's 85, 95 degrees at 8:00 in the evening. And when can we play then? Right? And how do we deal with this? And maybe there are situations where we'd like to have our games in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday because we have a potential to capture a different kind of audience, or our broadcast partners want that. Yeah, everybody's complaining about the schedule in MLS, right? All the games start at 7:30 local. I can't watch more than one game. If you want to spread out games, you're going to have to play during the day. So if you're going to play during the day, do you want to do that in the middle of the summer, or do you want to do that in the wintertime or in the fall when it's a lot cooler? And then again, the game improves. The quality of the game improves because the players aren't killing themselves running 6 miles in not only 92 degrees or 95 degrees, but in 75% humidity or 65% humidity when it is just absolutely impossible.
Yeah, this is making me nervous. I'm assuming that the World Cup next year is planning to play through the afternoon. Is that right? Do I have all
Everybody's
those?
talking, look, after the Club World Cup experience, where heat was a major factor in that, and coaches were complaining about not even being able to train. And Zamoreska was like, we can't even train. How are we supposed to get ready for these games? We can't even train. With that in mind, the recent experience, everybody's kind of trepidatious about what FIFA's going to do with scheduling for next year. The consensus or the thought was they're going to want to put games on during the day because the timing works out for the European television audiences. They did it in 94 when it was hot, but it's even hotter now. Got more games. Players are traveling all over the place. I don't know. I don't know, Rob. I don't think they should be playing games in the middle of the afternoon in the 2026 World Cup, but we shall see.
Will logic prevail? We shall see. And yeah, shout out, less than I think 3 weeks or so, 3-4 weeks until World Cup tickets go on sale. So we'll have to be on World Cup ticket watch here in a little bit. Going to move right along to our next segment. If you're watching this now and you haven't hit subscribe, what you waiting for? Morning Kick Around could use you as a subscriber. We're trying to get as many voices into this show as possible. To further our pursuit of becoming one of the town centers for the American soccer conversations. So just click subscribe. Doesn't cost you a darn thing. If you want to step it up a notch with your support of the show, $3.99 is all it costs to become a MK Ultra, a channel member of Morning Kick Around. You get priority commenting on screen to live programs such as this. You get early access to videos, bonus content, and access to the Morning Kick Around Discord server. Thank you for everyone who has become a member thus far. And thank you for tuning in. Regardless, you can also support on coffee.com/morningkickaround. We got some specific fundraising goals there, and you can find us on social media at mkickaround, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And one thing I often forget to mention is we are a podcast. Look up on Spotify or any of your favorite audio platforms and look up Morning Kick Around to take us on the road as a podcast. All right, final segment of Monday coming around. Big question coming up here on Morning Kick Around. Big question here on Morning Kick Around as Jason shakes his head at me in disgust of some sort. But last week we talked about the long, almost a roster, a squad full of soccer documentaries available online, and we kind of pitched the question of what would be the dream small American soccer team to have a docuseries, and we found at least one. We are looking for some assistance. Maybe you guys know of some more
Yes.
American soccer documentaries, or even some extended, more longer form content for us to dig into. But one of the suggestions that we want to take a look at is from Portland Heart the Pines. It's called Up the Hearts.
Yeah.
We found a little bit
before we play this trailer, there are 5 episodes of Up the Hearts. And okay, so again, this show and this exercise and doing it live and engaging with all of you watching and commenting is that back and forth of like, there's things we don't know. Now, there's things we do know that we hope we can share with you, but there's things we don't know. And I'm particularly interested in people who are very aware of what's happening on a lower local level when it comes to American soccer. These are the stories that get missed, and we want to bring them up, and we want to put them on the stage and want to put the spotlight on them. So we were looking around for lower division American soccer documentaries. So we pitched the idea of a couple of clubs and things, and I said Ford Madison, and I think we obviously Vermont Green and what they just recently did and stuff, and maybe we should have known. I don't know. Like, should we have known that there was a Portland Hearts of Pine docuseries? Maybe, but we learned about it because of talking about this phenomenon, and I'm hoping there's more like this. So I want to watch the trailer for Up the Hearts, and again, there's 5 episodes on YouTube. And I intend to watch them. Like, hope maybe we'll do even a review of Up the Hearts. If there's anything else like this, I can't find it. Maybe that's my failure to Google properly, Rob. But I can't find it. So if you know of stories like this, tell us. But let's watch the trailer for Up the Hearts, the Portland Hearts of Pine docuseries.
Every facet of American life is like captured in soccer.
It's called the beautiful game. It's fluid, it's graceful, and it can bring people together.
Portland's time is now, and everything's happening at the right time for Portland.
Good evening, everyone. It's official. Professional soccer is coming to Portland in 2025.
Now, the team would compete in the USL League One. That's the lowest of 3 divisions of professional soccer sanctioned by the U.S. Soccer Federation.
We're not trying to start a minor league club. We're trying to start a professional club with high aspirations.
I think this can turn into one of the most exciting soccer cultures in America.
Let's be honest, I have a really limited skill set to contribute to this world. I can coach soccer, and that's about it.
I really think, it's way more than just a game up here for a lot of these players, including myself.
Mainers, they're New England sports fans. They don't like to lose. But I'll be the first one to tell you that they're going to win the title next year.
And remember, 10 years from now, you're going to be bragging to people that I was there before anybody knew about this thing.
Fun starts, right? That's what's next.
Okay, that was awesome. I thought that was very well done. Spectacular little look. I got to go watch it. I, again, didn't know it was happening. And what we're looking for. So I see a couple of mentions of documentaries. The Sons of Ben documentary about the supporters group that helped launch the Philadelphia Union. Definitely worth a watch. All right. I see Huge Ass. Great name. Huge Ass is saying Soccer Zombie, YouTuber, a guy based out of St. Louis, is doing a good one on the Marshall Islands team in Northwest Arkansas. I've seen some stuff about that. I don't know a lot about it, but I guess what I'm looking for, not just soccer documentaries. There's a million soccer documentaries. If you do go look for soccer documentary on Google, you're going to find a billion of them. And there's ones on players. There's a Don one. There's the Maradona one. There's Maradona in Italy, which HBO did. There's Maradona in Mexico. It's a totally different documentary.
Yeah,
when he was coaching down there. There's lots of player ones. There's club ones, Juventus, a season on the brink kind of stuff, right? But I'm looking for lower division American soccer stories, small clubs, right? In the spirit of Wrexham, right? That's what started this conversation, Rob, is that we were talking about how, Welcome to Wrexham has spawned all of these copycats and spinoffs. And it's like, where is the American story about a small soccer club? Now, obviously, the context is very different here in America than it is in Wrexham or anywhere else in Europe. But that's where we're getting the story of Hearts of Pine launching in a town like Portland, Maine. And I'm glad we got a little of that Mainer accent in there at the end. Some guy on a mic had a little bit of that. Really wanted that. I was looking for that. If we get that and it's authentic and it's local and it talks about the passion of the city and the people who care about soccer there, even if it's not a gigantic community, that's what I want. I want to be told that story, Rob.
I saw a clip midway through the season. Now that we saw that, I recall I did see something from one of their episodes, and it was a younger, like a 20-something, whose dad was, the quintessential fisherman, the East Coast fisherman guy, and had that Mainer accent, like really heavy. and of him explaining to his dad like all about soccer and bringing him into the soccer game. And I thought that was a pretty interesting look, almost like a little bit of the towny guy in Wrexham, like, and his connection to football, but it was his introduction to it. It's like, hey, I know nothing about this, but this seems exciting that they're trying to put a professional sports team in my area. It's like, I'm just a humble fisherman, but this soccer team might be something worth rallying around. And I thought that was a very unique look. And cheers to the production for this. The club's just getting up and running. The first year on the field, and they're putting together something this polished right off the bat. It's great.
But if you're looking for this, by the way, it is on the Up the Hearts YouTube channel. Okay, so this is not. I don't know if they've cross-pollinated with their Portland Hearts of Pine official channel, which is the club's channel. And I don't. One thing I'm not sure about is the relationship between the filmmakers and the club. Like, is the club backing this? Probably, but I don't know about that. What I would say is what strikes me in that trailer, and what I think is true of a lot of places in this country in particular, is that these smaller cities, these towns, call them large towns, call them small cities, whatever, wherever you think that line is, a lot of them have an incredible local pride, right? They have a unique character, something about them. People feel a connection to the place that they are from in a very distinct way. And yet a lot of them don't really have this. They don't have a sporting enterprise to rally around. They don't have one thing to sort of represent their civic identity. Some of them do in terms of college sports, which we talked about already, Rob. There are obviously small towns across the country that are homes to colleges and universities that have teams that people go out and support. Think about Texas high school football, for example, right? You might not have a professional sports team. What you've got is a local high school team, and 10,000 people show up to watch the high school football team play. That's how big of a deal it is. Why can't soccer be that for a place like Portland, Maine? Which I'm sure, I think they have the Sea Dogs, right? They have a baseball team, but it's when you heard it in the documentary, right? I mean, that trailer, you heard the guy say, we're not launching a minor league soccer team, right? That's not what they're doing. This is the character difference between soccer rather and minor league baseball, right? Minor league baseball is great. I love it. I grew up on minor league baseball. It's the reason I fell in love with that sport in the first place. But you always have in your mind, these players are not here because they want to be here. They're here because they want to be playing for the major league team. And this team ultimately operates as a feeder to something bigger.
If they do well and hit the marks that we want them to, they're gone.
Yeah, you're right. It's a direct relationship between the minor league baseball team and the major league team, right? Yeah, there's a local owner maybe of the minor league team and blah blah blah, and there's a different name. Not always are you care. It's not always the same name as the major league team, but generally speaking, it's a direct relationship. That's not how soccer works. Like, maybe Portland Hearts of Pine players want to play at a higher level, and if they play well in Portland, they'll be in the USL Championship or Major League Soccer one day. But for the most part, they're playing because they've chose to be there. The team is representing the city. It doesn't matter. This is why when we talk about promotion and relegation a lot of times. And we discussed Peter Wilt's plan and some of the things that have come up on the show. Sometimes you'll hear owners say, it doesn't matter what league we play in. People do not care what league we play in. Now that can cut both ways, but in the sense that they mean it is they just want to rally around their town. They just want to rally around their city. They want to root for something that represents who they are. And if they are from Greenville, South Carolina, what do they have that represents them? Except the soccer team in town, right? And again, because you don't have to reconcile that's a minor league team, because that's not how soccer works, even though we think about them in those terms because of the structures baseball has put into our brains. I think that's special. And I think that's why I'm interested in watching this doc and why I want more stories like this. Again, whether it be in Madison or in Chattanooga or any place. And again, this is a brand new club, and those clubs, Detroit City, different market, but obviously same idea. Those teams have been around for a decade.
Yes, indeed, you're right. And hopefully there is a speaking of DCFC, maybe they do some great content, and they got great video and photography, and they have pretty much since their origin. But I'm interested to see if there is going to be a movie or a docuseries that spans the whole longevity since origins to now, documenting all the different jumps that they've made. I know there's small things that have been made along the way, but I'm curious if there's going to be a big long arc.
That'd be interesting. And some of this will be a retrospective history rather than sort of documenting things as they happen, which is what this Portland Hearts of Pine doc is about. All right, I want to address a couple of things. So Chris says, hopefully players will want to play in a city like Portland and stay in a city like Portland because they can go up to the USL Championship and USL Premier. This is obviously the idea that, hey, if you institute promotion and relegation, players will say, I want to help this team get promoted. Something we romanticize a lot when, in particular in English football. Yeah, I would love that. That'd be great. That would be awesome. Now, Baclata is a little bit more cynical here. Distinction without a difference in terms of calling this minor league or not. Portland can't sustain a top-level team in any sport. True. It's all talk, but at the end of the day, Portland Hearts of Pine is a minor league team. Now, again, that is sort of like, if you are just being as brutally honest as possible, of course, Portland Hearts of Pine doesn't measure up to the New England Revolution down the road, or any major league soccer team, or a USL championship team in terms of the size of the city and the support. Of course not. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is people in Portland, whether you want to believe it to be delusion or not, don't have to think about their team as subservient to another team. They don't have to think about their team as like, oh, we're Portland Hearts of Pine. Yeah, but we're just here to help the Revolution make better players. No, that's not the dynamic. The Revolution can come and buy your player, but you are a wholly independent entity that is not required to do anything except try to win soccer games and serve the people of Portland. Right? Again, this is semantics, but I think it's important semantics in sort of the mentality we have about our teams. And I don't always love treating soccer as exceptional, but in this regard, it is. Soccer is exceptional in this regard because, again, these teams that are quote unquote minor league compared to major league clubs don't have to think of themselves as, down the line from the major league club in any direct way. They can be independent and operate in that way.
I'll add on to that soccer is exceptional in the way, and I really hope that American lower leagues don't go the farm system route, because in minor league baseball and hockey, they don't play the games in like 100% of their goal isn't to win the game. They are behest to train up these players. So in the minor league, a pitcher might come and simulate a close of a game, even if that has nothing to do with the game state that they're in. I've worked in minor league hockey for many years, and sometimes they would pull the goalie in an end of game situation to practice that situation in a game that is so supposedly like they're trying to win, whereas soccer games, they're always trying to win.
In a development scenario, whether that be D-League, MLS Next Pro, the minor league system in baseball, every game has this. It's why minor league baseball is so dependent on promotions and giveaways and theme nights and things like that, which obviously are part of soccer too. But, minor league baseball is built on those things. Go watch. There's a great St. Paul Saints documentary that I watched not that long ago that talks a lot about how the Saints built that culture in St. Paul of being a team that, is fun to go watch. Winning is secondary. Winning a championship as a minor league team is like, oh yeah, that's great. That's fun. Those players aren't sticking around. If they helped the team win a championship and had a great season, they're gone. Not because they got purchased or because somebody came in and said, we want to sign your player, because they are reassigned to a higher. Again, that's the issue. It's like, is this about winning for winning's sake and for our community, or is this about feeding into something else that we don't have control over?
Yeah, I want the game that I paid for to mean something. I want all the players on the field and the coaching staff to want to win the game that I am there to watch.
Yes,
and that just isn't the case.
We're not developing anything but our own pride and our own success.
Yeah, indeed. But it looks like it's the end of the road here for this segment and maybe this episode of Morning Kick Around as well. Thank you for everyone who's joined us. If you've been watching along and if you haven't hit subscribe yet, click that button underneath the viewing window here. Doesn't cost you a darn thing. Helps this show and this channel tremendously. If you'd like to kick your support of this program up a notch, Morning Kick Around, you can become a channel member, become an MK Ultra for just $3.99 a month. Priority commenting on these live shows, early access to videos, bonus content, and access to the Morning Kick Around Discord server. A great place for American soccer conversation.
Everybody just look, do all that stuff Rob suggested if you want to. Okay. Please, if you want to. Like, again, we just want you to be here, right? We want you to be part of the conversation. And more than anything, if I can ask for one favor, if Rob and I can ask for one favor, share the show. tell somebody about the show, share a clip of the show, do the things on YouTube that help us populate people's feeds with Morning Kick Around content. That's what we need you to do. The more we get in people's algorithms, the more that we're involving American soccer fans in this stuff, the better the show's going to be.
Indeedly do. I agree with everything that Mr. Davis said. If you want to help doing that, hit the follow on our social media platforms. We are at MKickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com, or support on coffee.com/morningkickaround. Thank you, everyone who's been watching, subscribing, doing all the things I just listed, or thank you if you're just tuning in today. Thank you for stumbling across our show that airs Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. Got anything else for us, Mr. D?
Nope. Thank you for watching.
All right, guys. Until Wednesday, everybody, enjoy your soccer.